Are you suffering from bloating, gas, belly distension, indigestion, trouble digesting food, or particles of food coming out in your stool that should have been digested, or floating stool in the bathroom, or really foul-smelling gas? There are tons of digestive problems that happen. Our digestion is a complicated process that starts with your teeth, then your stomach, and goes all the way through the intestinal tract to turn into stool. And it's quite a complex system. And there are many ways to destroy that along the way with our modern ways of stressing too much, eating the wrong foods, and not exercising enough, not sleeping enough, all those things. So what I'm going to tell you about is we're going to talk about the functional medicine perspective on gut health and what are some things that you can naturally do to improve your gut health or improve your digestion. One of the things that's really common in America is to get your gallbladder removed from stones and whatnot. It seems to be pretty common that if you have any kind of right upper quadrant pain, which is in your liver area, that the surgeons will eventually just take out the gallbladder because it's probably the problem. It's been thought that the gallbladder doesn't serve a purpose. If the gallbladder didn't have a purpose, it wouldn't be in your body. It definitely has a purpose. The purpose of the gallbladder is to store bile. So your liver produces bile all day long, but the gallbladder acts as a pocket for all that bile to be stored. And then when fat enters the intestines, that whole pocket of bile gets squeezed out and shot into the intestinal tract to help you digest those fats. So many people that have either a dysfunctional gallbladder or no gallbladder at all can't digest fat very well. So if you can't digest fat very well, anytime you eat something fatty like pork or bacon or coconut oil or some sort of fatty food, eggs, you're going to get some indigestion. And you know what? The brain is smart. It starts to identify foods that upset its digestion, so it starts avoiding it. But if you've watched any of my other videos, you've realized that the way to live a healthy life and optimize your health is actually eat a higher fat diet, full of avocados and eggs and olive oil and coconut oil and all those things. But if you can't properly digest your fats, you're going to get indigestion, bloating, and everything's going to go south from there. Because as you start avoiding fats, you start eating carbs and protein. And basically, although high protein seems to be really popular right now, high protein basically turns into carbs, and carbs are carbs, and those all feed yeast. So many people start struggling with yeast overgrowth, and the yeast crave even more sugar, and so it's a downward spiral. So I want to help you come up with some natural strategies to maybe improve your own digestion, because you know which foods you need to eat, but maybe you just can't eat them because you feel bad when you eat them, and that's not the way things are supposed to go. You're supposed to be able to eat broccoli and feel good. So if you eat broccoli and you feel distended and bloated, then something's not right. We got to fix that. Now, if you have an allergy to broccoli or a food sensitivity to broccoli, that's a different story. I'll save that for another time. So let's start with the beginning of digestion. It's your mouth, it's your teeth. You have to have enough saliva. You have to be well hydrated to actually soften the food and then chew it. And then you have to chew the food appropriately and swallow it down. That part's rather mindless and doesn't take a lot of effort. But once you get into the stomach, frequently we see people with hypochlorhydria. That's a fancy way of saying not enough stomach acid. The stressful lifestyles of today, the bad food choices, it starts damaging our stomach lining. And as the stomach lining starts getting damaged, you can't make as much stomach acid. I've done other videos on gastritis and heartburn, and you can watch those for more details on why low stomach acid causes heartburn. But for now, let's talk about digestion, and let's talk about how acid helps you digest food. Acid, as you probably know, if you stuck your finger in acid, it would start to burn after a while because it will literally burn your finger. Your stomach's no different. Your stomach has a pH of 2, which is extremely acidic in good conditions when you're making enough acid. And you need that in order to digest beef and chicken and all the other foods that we eat, because we eat whole foods, or you're supposed to be eating whole foods, but our body needs to break it down into microscopic little particles in order to absorb the nutrients and the calories from them. So if you don't have enough acid, you can't break down the food into small enough pieces. If you can't break down the food, then you can't absorb it. Your body's not perfect. It has to be broken down into tiny little pieces in order for it to be absorbed. So step one that many people struggle with is not making enough stomach acid. You can replace this stomach acid with supplements like betaine. So I've got some props here for you. So this is one brand. This is an orthomolecular brand of betaine, and it's got 1 gram of betaine for 2 capsules. And so this can help replace your stomach acid. How do you take this? You take this when you eat a meal. So Basically, when you eat eggs or avocado or coconut oil, those are fats, and you need stomach acid to digest those. So you would take betaine pills at the exact same time that you're eating because your stomach's not making enough acid. Now, hopefully over time, as we get you more optimal, eating healthy foods and restore the body, you won't need those long term, but many people do. Word of caution, if you take betaine and you get heartburn or stomach pain, that means your stomach lining is not prepared for the acid. It doesn't mean you already have too much acid. It means that you don't have enough stomach lining and mucus to protect yourself from the acid. So you got to work on a more stomach restorative program. Watch some of my other videos on GERD or heartburn to learn how to do that. We're going to keep moving on to the next stage of digestion. So after the food is appropriately acidified in the stomach, then the small bowel opens up and the contents of the stomach rush into the small intestine. This first part of the intestine is called the duodenum. The duodenum is where the gallbladder contracts to squeeze all that bile to come in to the intestines to help you break down the fats even further. Bile is alkaline and the stomach is acidic, so one of the major properties of bile is actually to reduce the acid into more neutral pH so that the enzymes can get to work. The small intestinal enzymes don't work at highly acidic pHs. They get activated by the acidic pHs, but they don't work at the acidic pHs, so the bile has to neutralize it. Moreover, bile salts do something called saponification or create micelles. Basically, if you think of olive oil or a salad dressing with olive oil or some sort of fat, like balsamic vinegar and oil, you'll notice that when you leave in the fridge, it separates into two components, right? If you were to shake that up really vigorously, you'll get the oil droplets mixed inside, and that's what you want to pour in your salad, of course. Well, your body can't shake things up in order to separate those little fat droplets into smaller droplets, and so it uses bile and stomach acid to make micelles, which are tiny little oil droplets, so that your body can absorb those small oil droplets. If they're big globs of oil in your intestines and in your digestive tract, then you just can't be able to absorb it. It's all about surface area, and I don't want to get too lost into the physics and biochemistry about it, but you need acid and you need bile in order to absorb fat. So let's pause right there and talk about people that already have their gallbladder removed. Well, if you have your gallbladder removed, you can't concentrate that bile in your gallbladder like people with a gallbladder. So that when you eat a meal and that meal leaves the stomach and enters the small intestine, you don't get that surge of bile. Instead, you just get this slow trickle from the liver all day long. So that reduces your ability to absorb fats. This can be tricky because we can replace bile with bile salts. So I've got another prop for us. These are bile salts. This is a Vital Nutrients brand ox bile extract, and it's got 200 milligrams in 2 capsules. So basically what you can do is, if you're struggling with digesting fats and you're missing a gallbladder, then that's one of the things you can add to see if it will help you break down your fats appropriately. Once again, it needs to be added with the meal. Now this isn't perfect because bile is supposed to be added in the small intestine, but this is going to start in the stomach because that's where all your pills go when you swallow them. But that can help you digest food. This can upset the stomach, cause diarrhea or constipation for some people. So you want to kind of try this slowly, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, that's all right. One of the other things we frequently use for people that are having trouble digesting fat is actually extra enzymes. So this is another orthomolecular brand, Digestive 5, and it's loaded with pancreatic enzymes. So after the food leaves the stomach, enters the small intestine, bile gets squirted in, but then the pancreas releases enzymes to help you break down that food into microscopic tiny little molecules for the intestines to be able to absorb. So the bile breaks it down into smaller little droplets, and then the enzymes break those tiny little droplets into tiny microscopic particles to then be absorbed. It's complex. So if you don't have a gallbladder and maybe you don't have the greatest stomach in the world, then sometimes adding extra enzymes in, even though you may not need them, can help you digest your food quicker and readily absorb them. Because your small intestine is a finite amount of space. If you don't digest the food by the time the food is leaving the small intestine into the large bowel, you're just not going to absorb it. The large bowel doesn't absorb any nutrients. It mainly only absorbs water. So by the time the nutrients leave and go to the large bowel, it's done. It's over. The issue, one of the big issues, is that if you're not appropriately digesting your food, then some other bacteria or fungus will. because there's nutrients there, someone's going to gobble it up. And chances are it's not going to be beneficial bacteria, it's not going to be beneficial yeast, it's going to be an overgrowth of one type of bacteria depending on what type of food you're eating. It's going to be an imbalance of the bacteria, you're going to start creating biofilms that are not healthy, and things are going to go downhill pretty quickly. So the way you take digestive enzymes are with each meal. So same thing as the ox bile, same thing as the stomach acid. When you're eating a meal, you start with digestive enzymes, or you take them at the same time as the meal. The digestive enzymes are the easiest one to take with no side effects. Enzymes never have any heartburn or stomach issues, diarrhea, constipation, and so this is an easy one to add without much trouble. And there's tons of different versions of digestive enzymes. If you're struggling from diarrhea and you add this and all of a sudden you get constipated, that's not saying that these constipated you or enzymes constipated you. It's because you're changing your food source. When you change your food source, you change the bacteria in your bowels. When you change that bacteria, sometimes things get imbalanced for a while and you might feel worse before you feel better. So that's a brief breakdown of the digestive tract as succinctly as I could make it, in ways that you can aid your digestion to make sure you're breaking down your food completely. The key take-home messages are, if you're getting indigestion, if you're getting bloating, if you are not digesting your food and you're finding whole food particles in your stool, then something's wrong in your digestion. Now, corn kernels and stuff, if that ends up in the stool, that's a whole different story. I think you understand that. But if you're getting food particles like nuts or seeds or anything coming out in the stool, then you're not absorbing your food and you're not breaking it down very well. So that's all I have for this video. Feel free to leave comments, ask questions, and maybe I'll do a follow-up video if I get a lot of questions on what people are unsure about. Like and share it and tag someone if you know they have bloating, indigestion, and not getting any relief.